time is now 5:44 on Wednesday, March 18, 2026, and this public meeting of the State Board of Education will come to order. The roll will now be called to determine the presence of a quorum. Director Butler, please call the roll.
Representative Chamberlain.
Present.
Representative Dinkin.
Present.
Representative Mozendar.
Present.
Representative Wardy. Representative Best.
Present.
Representative Chang.
Present.
Representative Colson. Representative Henderson.
Present.
Representative Johnson Law.
Good evening and present.
Representative Thompson. Representative Williams. Vice President Goulet.
Here.
President Patterson.
Here.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
A quorum has been determined, and the State Board will now proceed with the business portion of the meeting. Members, we have a draft agenda before us. Are there any questions or additions to this agenda? Representative Johnson Law.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move to amend Section 8 of the agenda by postponing the vote on SR 26-3 until April 22, the date of our next public meeting, to give OSSI sufficient time until the end of the month to review the resolution.
Thank you, Representative. There is a second.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded by our Vice President Goulet. Is there any discussion on the motion?
I'll just speak briefly on it. I want to thank you, Representative Johnson Law, for your
Can you
foresight.
speak into the microphone, please?
Oh, you know what? That would be helpful. Let me turn that on. Representative Johnson Law, I want to thank you for your leadership and foresight on this. I know it's a very important and timely issue. I think it's good that we're giving OSSI time to review it, but you've been a leader on this issue, and to be able to be in front of this issue, I think, is really important for this board. So thanks for giving the additional time for review. I'm excited to support this next month, and hopefully the extra time will give us a full picture of what they have to say in reaction to recent events about what we've learned. So I just want to thank you again for being on top of this and being out in front of it for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Are there any comments? Any other comments? Seeing no further comments or discussion, the motion is to postpone the vote on SR 26-3 as moved by Representative Johnson and seconded by Vice President Goulet. I will ask for the yeas and the nays on this motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? It carries. The ayes have it. We now have the minutes from our working session on March 4th. Is there a motion to adopt these minutes?
So moved.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded by Representative Best. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, the motion is to adopt the minutes for our March working session. I will ask for the yeas and the nays on the motion. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it and the motion carries. Thanks everyone for helping us get through that portion. Good evening, I am Dr. Jacques Patterson, the at-large representative and president of the DC State Board of Education. On behalf of the State Board, I want to welcome guests and members of the public, including those who are watching live via the District Knowledge Network, to our public meeting. These meetings take place on the third Wednesday of every month in the Old Council Chamber here at 441 4th Street Northwest. On February 25th, we had our agency's annual performance oversight hearing. We want to thank Chairman Mendelson and the council for the opportunity to share about our agency and the progress and work from the past year. We also recently had our standing meeting with Superintendent Mitchell to share updates and discuss ongoing areas of collaboration such as high school graduation requirements and physical education standards. This evening, we have 7 witnesses who have signed up to share testimony. We encourage the public to sign up every month at sboe.dc.gov. The State Board is available as a resource to our local communities. Please don't hesitate to contact your ward's representative with questions or concerns related to public education, or email our agency staff at sboe@dc.gov. At this time, I would like to welcome our State Superintendent, Dr. Mitchell, to provide OSSI remarks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Good evening, State Board members, staff, and the public. As always, I appreciate the opportunity to update you on some of OSSI's recent activities and our shared priorities. Before I do, though, let me say thank you so much for giving OSSI the opportunity to comment on your resolution. I think that speaks to the types of partnership and collaboration that will enable us to move our entire system forward. So deeply appreciate that. I'd like to begin with an update on OSSI's recent activities before providing a few remarks on the topic of this evening's panel discussion. Since we last met, OSSI published a report on flexible scheduling, CTE, and DC tag, as well as a model cell phone policy. I also attended our agency's annual performance oversight hearing with the DC Council. At the hearing, I explained that DC's public education system has strong momentum. Academic achievement is improving. In 2025, the DC CAPE scores reflected the greatest year-over-year improvement to date. We recognize that we have a long way to go, but we also want to celebrate the progress that we are making. The graduation rate is improving. DC has experienced a 20 percentage point increase in our four-year high school graduation rate over the past 14 years. Over last year, it was a 2.6% increase, and that increase was driven by African American students. I think African American boys increased their graduation rate by 7%. Teacher retention is also improving. Same school retention has increased 7 percentage points in the last 4 years. And CTE, Career and Technical Education, access and participation is also improving. DC increased the number of students concentrating in a CTE field by 29% last year and 188% since 2020. These strong measures demonstrate that the district is moving in the right direction, and we should continue to invest in the strategies, supports, and structures that are leading to this positive momentum. I also explained that OSSI recently finalized the purchase of a new GPS and routing system for our bus system. We will spend the next 12 months implementing and testing the new system, which will help our agency continue to improve efficiency, timeliness, and communications for the thousands of students and families that rely on OSSI to get to and from school each day. Finally, I noted that OSSI's child care subsidy program has experienced tremendous growth. This growth reflects how essential the program is, supporting workforce participation, strengthening our local economy, providing stability for child care providers, and helping low to moderate income families make ends meet. However, this growth has created a $38 million budget deficit this year. And unlike the federal government, we are required to balance our budget, our local budget. That means that we have to take responsible steps to contain program costs. After extensive analysis, careful deliberation, engagement with stakeholders, we announced last week that we intend to implement a waitlist policy beginning May 12, 2026. This is not a step that I want to take, but it is a necessary step to stabilize the program's budget and ensure its continued operation for the families who rely on it. Families that are currently eligible for the program and those who enroll in the program by May 12 will continue to be eligible for the program as the waitlist is implemented. Before closing, I'd like to take a few minutes to speak about ELA standards implementation, which is the topic of this evening's panel discussion. DC's ELA assessment scores demonstrate the strongest recovery in the nation from the COVID-19 pandemic. Our schools, educators, and families deserve the lion's share of the credit for this, but OSSE also plays an important role. We have strengthened literacy instruction across the district by grounding our work in the science of reading and ensuring that every elementary student has access to high-quality research-based instruction. To support the adoption of high-quality instructional materials grounded in the science of reading, OSSE has worked closely with LEAs to align training, curriculum, and coaching with DC's local requirements and academic standards. In 2024, we released a vetted list of high-quality science-based literacy programs for K-5, along with evaluation rubrics, adoption guidance, and a community of practice to help LEAs learn from one another. This year, we expanded our focus to middle school intervention programs. We've supported LEAs in meeting this requirement by developing and publishing a list of recommended literacy intervention programs, a rubric for evaluating programs, and guidance document on adult literacy research and the adoption process. Across all of this work, our commitment remains the same. OSSE's literacy initiatives continue to be guided by high-quality research and the needs of our local communities, ensuring that every student in DC has the strong foundation in reading they need and deserve. Thank you so much for your time, attention, and continued partnership.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mitchell. We always appreciate you being here with us, sitting next to me, and just giving us the updates. Again, we appreciate how well we work together with OSSE and the collaboration that we have with you guys, so thank you so much.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot from the panel tonight.
I know. We have a great panel coming up. Speaking of, we will now move to our expert panel, which is titled From Standards to Success, Evaluating ELA Curriculum in DC. I will now call on each panelist. When I call your name, you are welcome to come to the table. Corey Colgan, Chief of Teaching and Learning, District of Columbia Public Schools. Kate Merrill, Managing Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Center City Public Charter School. Kate Vates, Founder, Curriculum Insight Project. And Natalie Wexler, Education Writer. Panelists, each of you will have up to 5 minutes to share your testimony. The timer light on the table will be green for the first 4 minutes and a half, yellow for the last 30 seconds, and red after 5 minutes have elapsed. After all panelists concludes, we will move to one round of questions from our state board. We will begin with Ms. Colgan. Please begin when you are ready.
Do I need to turn? Okay, thank you. Good evening, State Board of Education representatives, staff, and members of the public. My name is Corinne Colgan. I'm a proud former literacy coach and English teacher. Years ago, I led the rollout of the Common Core English Language Arts, or ELA, standards at the District of Columbia Public Schools. Today, I serve as the Chief of the Office of Teaching and Learning at DCPS, a role I have held since 2018. Thank you for the opportunity to testify about ELA curricula in our schools. DCPS has invested deeply in improving literacy instruction, and we are so proud of our students' growth. Our most recent National Assessment of Educational Progress, or NAEP, results demonstrated improvement greater than national trends in both 4th and 8th grade literacy. Our 2025 DC CAPE literacy scores increased by 4 percentage points from the previous year, our largest gain since the pandemic. By the end of last school year, 79% of our K through 2nd graders were meeting or exceeding the benchmark in foundational reading skills, an increase of 2 percentage points from the previous school year. My testimony will highlight the critical work that has been happening at DCPS, including the implementation of high-quality ELA curricula to ensure all students become competent, confident, and joyful readers. DCPS participated in the Early Literacy Task Force, and we are grateful to Representative Chang for his continuous collaboration. Please see my written testimony for more details on how we are implementing the recommendations of the task force through our DCPS Reading Clinic and a walkthrough tool we developed in collaboration with the Office of the State Superintendent of Education. In our middle grades, for many years, DCPS has primarily utilized District Visions, a locally developed ELA curriculum created by the Office of Teaching and Learning and classroom teachers in the mid-2010s and revised annually. The curriculum was designed to address the Common Core state standards and the instructional shifts that accompanied them. 1, regular practice with complex text and academic language. 2, reading, writing, and speaking grounded in evidence from the texts. And 3, building knowledge through content-rich nonfiction as well as literature. Last school year, our office conducted surveys, focus groups, and curricular audits to assess whether District Visions continues to meet the needs of DCPS students and teachers. Feedback from stakeholders highlighted a few areas for improvement, including the need for more relevant and diverse texts, more user-friendly materials for teachers, and stronger curricular supports for secondary students who struggle with reading and writing. This feedback, coupled with the district's focus on ensuring our teachers and students have access to high-quality curriculum, led our team to begin exploring alternative curricular options. DCPS has been aware of Common Lit for years. It is similar in design to District Visions, and many teachers have used their resources to supplement the District Visions curriculum. In 2024, Common Lit earned an all-green ratings from Ed Reports, a leading curriculum reviewing nonprofit dedicated to identifying high-quality instructional materials. In 2024, Common Lit approached DCPS to participate in a multi-year research study of the impact of their curriculum on student learning in middle schools. We decided to pursue this partnership and study based on the feedback we heard from our educators because of our history with the resources and the positive Ed Reports ratings. During the pilot, Common Lit provides free teacher and school leader professional development, district-level support, and student data analysis. We have received questions about the number of full-length novels that are included in the pilot curriculum, and I want to take this opportunity to address those questions. The Common Core ELA reading standards are half literary and half informational, and Common Lit balances both. At least once per grade, students read a full-length novel or play. Teachers also have the autonomy to include more full-length texts in their courses than what is provided in the curriculum. Some teachers hold literature circles at least once a year in which students choose a novel to read on their own and share about, like in a book club. DCPS also provides opportunities for students to read full-length books outside of ELA classes. For example, a best practice for school librarians is to support students, such as eager or reluctant readers, who would benefit from additional access to full-length novels. These strategies are driven by student need and student choice. Both within classes and beyond, we want students to read texts that hold a mirror to their lived experiences and texts that serve as a window into the experiences of people who are quite different. The texts included in the Common Lit curriculum expose students to a wide variety of perspectives. And I understand I'm out of time, so I'll just briefly state that the rest of my testimony just describes a little bit the rigorous analysis we'll do of this pilot curriculum to determine our next steps going forward.
Thank you. Next. You can pull it closer if you like.
Good evening. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Kate Merrill, and I am the Managing Director of Curriculum and Instruction for Center City Public Charter Schools. Center City has 6 campuses across DC, located in wards 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8, and we serve students in grades pre-K through 8. When I began my tenure at Center City, our district was using a teacher-created ELA curriculum across grades 4 through 8. Despite our best efforts, this curriculum addressed roughly only 2/3 of the Common Core, and writing standards were left out entirely. At the time, Center City relied on a variety of supplemental resources, such as the Right Steps curriculum, which no longer exists. We know from recent data from TNTP, Ed Reports, and Educators for Excellence that without high-quality instructional materials, teachers may spend anywhere from 7 to 12 hours per week searching for materials that are often not vetted and not aligned to state standards. We also know that when students are given access to high-quality curriculum that is implemented with thoughtful fidelity, they are far more likely to reach grade level expectations. Beginning in 2017, we embarked on a multi-year effort to replace our curriculum with one that integrated all of the Common Core standards and allowed teachers to spend more time on intellectual prep rather than on creating materials from scratch. In 2017-18, we adopted the Great Minds Wit and Wisdom curriculum in grades 3 through 5, and in 2018-19, we adopted it in grades 6 through 8. We were drawn to Wit and Wisdom for 3 reasons. Writing was integrated at the daily level rather than being a standalone supplemental resource. Wit and Wisdom is a knowledge-building curriculum, meaning that students practice literacy skills while building content knowledge across science, social studies, and literature. And the curriculum is grounded in real books that students can hold in their hands, annotate, and enjoy while they develop the habits of good readers. Research dating back to the early 1980s shows that students build vocabulary and reading comprehension skills through the intentional building of content knowledge beginning in early grades. Wit and Wisdom modules are thematic in nature. For example, our 4th grade curriculum includes a module called The Redcoats Are Coming. Students study point of view through an analysis of art, fiction, and nonfiction related to the Revolutionary War. They explore art from the Boston Massacre. They read perspectives from George Washington and King George III in the text George versus George. And they read the novel The Woods Runner, in which a boy searches for his parents who were captured during the war. Not only are students building historical background knowledge, they are also building literary analysis and writing skills while building stamina for reading and comprehending more complex texts. After shifting to Wit and Wisdom in grades 3 through 8, we noticed that students struggled when they arrived in 3rd grade due to the rigorous demands of our text-based and writing-heavy curriculum. In K-2, our prior curriculum centered on shorter texts and extended read-alouds from an anthology. We knew we could only replace our prior curriculum by also integrating a structured literacy-aligned phonics program. We fully adopted Wit and Wisdom and Wilson Foundations in 21-22 for grades K-2. Along our path to full implementation of Wit and Wisdom across K-8, we have learned the following. First, do the research. Before adopting new curricula, we study rubrics from ed reports and dig into the research and rationale behind the development of the program. This heavily guides our decision-making and ensures we adopt a curriculum that is aligned to rigorous standards. Ongoing professional development is essential. When we adopt new curricula, we budget for the full scope of publisher-designed professional learning for our teachers. We want to ensure that our teachers are armed with all of the information they need to teach the curriculum strategically and with fidelity. Teacher voice and buy-in matter. Prior to adoption, we provided teachers with access to curriculum materials and the opportunity to pilot a module. This allowed teachers to develop familiarity with the curriculum before implementing it in full. Their feedback formed the foundation of our rollout and professional development planning. Curriculum internalization and intellectual prep should be the primary focus of PDs and PLCs. A high-quality curriculum provides an excellent script as a foundation, allowing teachers to spend more time planning for learning and internalizing the content. Budget for all the materials needed for full access to the curriculum. It's essential to eliminate any potential barrier for full implementation. Teachers should not have to scrounge around for materials to teach a district-mandated curriculum. Buy the books. We purchase the books for students and replace them as consumables year over year. This allows students to develop the habits of good readers and to continually practice reading outside of the classroom. When they leave Center City, they have a personal library of books across genres in their home. And finally, consistency matters. In our classrooms with the lowest teacher turnover, student achievement increases year over year as teachers continue to internalize our curriculum and develop practices that have an impact on learning. We believe a high-quality curriculum is essential to such growth, but teacher practice and consistency is even more important. Thank you.
Is your mic on? Just make sure.
Good evening. My name is Karen Bates, and I lead the Curriculum Insight Project, and I'm amazed by that timely finish. I'll aim to do the same. I'm pleased here to discuss to be here to discuss best practices in ELA curriculum selection. I have only 5 minutes on this rich and very important topic, so I've linked many additional resources from my written testimony. Understandably, your team's invested in selecting curriculum aligned to DC standards. The standards were clear about the importance of texts. Each of the 3 Common Core shifts, also referenced by Corey, calls for students to practice regularly with complex text and its academic language, and to build knowledge through content-rich nonfiction. Common Core lead author Sue Pimentel has called to place text at the center of English language arts instruction. And you'll find liberal reference to books in the guidance documents for the Common Core. The standards authors have also emphasized the research proving the importance of a large volume of reading to grow literacy skills, largely by exposing students to broader vocabulary and textual language. However, the standards aren't prescriptive about which texts students should read. The standards give guidance for text complexity and the balance of fiction and nonfiction for each grade. But in deference to local control norms, they left it to schools to choose the texts and topics of study. We need to look to other evidence to consider the right balance of books versus passages in English language arts curricula. This is frankly an area of limited research, yet we do have studies making the case for whole books over passages. Marianne Wolf, the leading scholar on reading and the brain, has argued, based on neuroscience research, that the deep reading experience from books nurtures our capacity for sustained attention and also for empathy and insight. There are also studies in classroom settings. In a British study of 7th grade equivalent students, teachers did a fast reading experiment, reading 2 challenging novels with students over the course of 12 weeks. With this fairly short intervention, 12 weeks is pretty short, all things considered, weaker readers made 16 months worth of progress. Students overall gained 8.5 months of progress in reading comprehension as measured by comprehension assessments, and weaker readers made 16 months worth of progress. The gains in student achievement that they saw were icing on the cake. Researchers have also demonstrated that increasing sustained cognitive activity markedly increases cognitive endurance, and I hope you'll all read the linked study. This is a lesson that we need to apply to reading as well. We can also look at field evidence. Louisiana is an excellent state to reference for 8th grade reading. In an era of national decline in 8th grade reading outcomes, Louisiana's 8th grade outcomes held up with only a modest pandemic dip. Today, Louisiana has the 2nd best reading proficiency in the nation for economically disadvantaged students. What did Louisiana do? Their signature reform was to bring curriculum designed around whole books into statewide use. In England, which has been rising in the international PISA rankings for 15-year-olds, students in secondary grades consistently work around whole novels and plays in alignment with their national standards. If we want students to build the reading stamina necessary for long works, it stands to reason they should work with longer books in schools. Critically, there is no evidence to suggest that a diet of passages can develop students' reading stamina as effectively as longer works. Until we have research evidence proving the lack of harm in a diet of shorter texts, I'd argue that the precautionary principle should apply in education as it does in medicine. First, do no harm. We would not tell runners to attempt to train for a marathon doing only sprints simply because no research proves you can't. Similar common sense should prevail for longer form reading in classrooms. Unfortunately, misunderstandings abound about the value of books. I understand that I'm running short on time, so I've linked a few things, and my testimony gives a bit of detail about some of the misunderstandings about the value of books over passages and the role of major publishers in promoting passage-rich curricula. I happen to link to some details from my esteemed colleague, Natalie Wexler, so I'm delighted to pass to her now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So I am Natalie Wexler, and thank you, members of the board, for focusing attention on a really critical issue, like how to evaluate an ELA curriculum. And I've been writing about education for the past decade or so and have become aware of some really widespread misconceptions about how best to equip students to read the increasingly complex text that they're going to be encountering through their school careers. And attention, I know, has recently been focused a lot on problems with phonics instruction, and there are problems with that, but typical instruction in reading comprehension has also conflicted with what cognitive science tells us will work. And so one key misunderstanding in this area concerns how best to align an ELA curriculum with ELA standards. Teachers are often expected to teach the standards, and that is often what ELA curriculum tries to do as well. And that might sound sensible, and it does make sense in an area like social studies or science, usually, where the standards actually specify specific content. But ELA standards are not like that. Basically, they just list comprehension skills. So for example, the Common Core standards, which DC has adopted, they require students to do things like read closely to determine what the text says explicitly and to make logical inferences from it. Of course, we do want students to be able to do things like that, but as two of the key architects of the Common Core literacy standards have explained, these ELA standards are not meant to be the goal of daily instruction. Rather, that goal should be understanding the texts encountered and being able to express that understanding. In fact, cognitive science tells us that the kind of skills, the comprehension skills listed in ELA standards cannot be taught in the abstract. They're not skills like riding a bike that just get better the more you practice them. Whether you can apply a skill like making an inference based on a text is going to depend mostly on how much relevant background knowledge and vocabulary you have. So we have lots of evidence that having knowledge of the topic you're reading about is really helpful to comprehension, and also that having general academic knowledge and vocabulary is very helpful to general reading comprehension. But the only way to enable students to acquire that general knowledge is to really immerse them in lots of specific topics, because things like vocabulary don't stick in the abstract. They need a meaningful context. The most widely used ELA curricula, unfortunately, ignore this evidence, and rather than putting a text in the foreground and bringing in whatever skills are appropriate, they use texts as vehicles for teaching the skills that are in the standards. So with that kind of curriculum, sure, kids are going to get exposed to a lot of content, but it's likely to be pretty random and superficial. Sea mammals one day, the solar system the next. And in addition, most curricula do rely on, the most widely used curricula rely on brief passages or excerpts from whole texts. And that's partly because it's seen as being more efficient if you want to teach the skills. As one middle school teacher explained to a parent who asked why the class was reading only the first half of a novel, it doesn't matter, he said, if it's an excerpt or a whole text, because the skills are the same. And nationwide, there's a documented trend away from reading whole books and novels, even in high school. But it's actually much harder to gain the kind of knowledge that enables reading comprehension from a brief excerpt. And of course, reading excerpts or just the first few chapters of a novel is going to be a lot less engaging. So this skills-focused approach to teaching comprehension also widens the gap in education outcomes between students at the upper and lower ends of the socioeconomic spectrum, because children from more highly educated families are better able to acquire that kind of academic knowledge and vocabulary at home. So the gap just gets wider between these two groups of students every year if you don't start building knowledge in school. Now, there are several elementary curricula out there now that do build knowledge, and I have some more information about that in my written testimony. But I'd just like to end with two final notes, and one is just to echo what Corey Colgan was saying about that common lit curriculum. That is not a curriculum that relies on excerpts. I'm not that familiar with the curriculum, but it does include whole novels and plays. The other thing I'd like to just mention is that one big obstacle to assigning novels and whole text is that students are not doing their homework. This is happening, we have also some evidence that this is happening across the country. And what we need is a shift in expectations system-wide, because it's really going to be very difficult for teachers to teach whole novels if students are not doing any reading outside of class. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank each of you. Director Butler will now call the roll of member questions, which will begin with our student representatives. Each member will have 3 minutes. A reminder to members that the 3 minutes include both the time to ask the question and the panelist response. Director Butler.
Representative Chamberlain.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here today to speak to us. I first have a question for Karen Vates, and then I would like to address all of you. I noticed in your written testimony that you mentioned that there are not standardized texts that students should be reading, especially full-length ones. I'd like to ask how you feel about standardized novels. Like, how would you feel about having full-length text be standardized? And if that happens, how can we make sure that teachers still have the ability to kind of tweak curriculum so that it's more culturally responsive within their classroom?
This is a really good question, and we're about to, as a country, watch an experiment in this play out in the state of Texas. Natalie and I have both written about Texas's move to introduce a set of state-dictated curricula, state-dictated texts as a part of the curriculum for, I believe, all grades, K-12. And both Natalie and I are of mixed minds on this, if I read our writing accurately. On the positive side, and I commend Texas because they have done an open call, including teachers, to say what are the texts we should include in our list. I think there are some excellent texts on curricula on the short list in Texas. They've not yet announced their final list, and but the way this is headed, I'm pleased with the way that Texas is definitely going to bring some strong texts into mandatory use. And given the prevalence of curricula, you'll find in the latter part of my testimony some pointed critiques of publishers who've put passage-only programs forward, largely to push their own profitability. I think Texas's move is a nice counter to that. On the other hand, if this became a national trend, I would be disappointed that we might lose some of the momentum that we've seen from having a set of knowledge-building curricula that are used nationally, and there is some benefit to that too in the way that teachers can swap materials across state lines, et cetera. In addition, just saying use this pile of texts isn't in any way adequate. We also want to give teachers those paired materials so that there are text-dependent questions and writing prompts aligned to the texts and all the rich things that come with curricula that aren't just, hey, here's a set of good books, go figure it out. So that's my response in brief. Much more to say about that, but I would definitely want teachers to have both the benefit of the ability to work with their peers and collaborate not just locally and in their district, but nationally and benefit from a national community of practice, while also having, of course, that ability in the classroom in the moment to make those right pivots for their students.
Thank you so much. Representative Dinkins.
Hello, so I have 2 questions. My first question is on curriculum change to a more cultural curriculum. What does success look like for this new curriculum shift beyond test scores? How would you measure student responses like satisfaction and engagement?
Is that directed for anyone? Okay. Well, I can speak a little bit about how we are planning to evaluate the pilot, which is a 2-year pilot for our middle schools. About half of our middle schools are involved in this pilot for Common Lit. And so we are including focus groups for teachers, school leaders, and students, and as well as surveys for students and families to provide feedback for us on the curriculum that is a range of questions about how much they enjoyed it, engagement, also how much they felt they learned, where did they notice progress in their own reading or writing skills, that kind of thing. And then we also will be looking at student data, of course, to see what kind of impact we're seeing in the outcomes for students. Yeah, so that's primarily how we are assessing the impact. And I think you had an earlier part of your question about cultural relevance. So that would also be a part of the survey questions we would ask students, but also, as I named in my testimony, this is something that is really important to us to ensure that students both see themselves in the curriculum and the text that they're reading, but also are exposed to a wide variety of perspectives or, life experiences that might be really different from theirs. It's always a little hard to find that exact balance, but that's something we're constantly wrestling with and getting feedback from teachers and students on.
And that actually leads into my next question. How are students involved with like identifying what is culturally relevant to them?
It's a great question. So I think it's like, it can be addressed in a lot of different ways. I think in this experience that we're having right now in DCPS with this middle school curriculum, we have a formalized structure for students to provide feedback to us, but that hasn't always been the case. Prior to this, we've had our curriculum in place for many years, although we did do some revision every year. And so we have had over the years opportunities for students, like I remember having student focus group come in. It was actually a part of a project or like an internship experience that the students were doing, and they came in to our office, and we had them read a set of other novels to give us feedback on, like, are any of these ones that we should be including in the curriculum that would make you feel better about feeling like it's culturally relevant. So I will say it has not been one consistent process year over year, but it is something that we pay attention to. So, yeah.
Representative Mozumdar.
Hello, and thank you all for coming here to testify to us today. My first question is for Ms. Colgan, and it's how does educator accessibility and making curricula user-friendly for teachers look like when you're creating a curricula, and like what are the best practices surrounding that? I know you mentioned during the audit of the district visions curricula that you saw that there was a need for user-friendly curricula for teachers.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's one of the main reasons we are pushing to look at more vendor-published curriculum, because in many ways I think that's the biggest difference between what we've been able to create kind of in-house with the advice and review of external experts and like a massive publishing company who can create something that looks really beautiful and user-friendly and is consistent from page to page. And so we have recognized that the demands on our teachers, especially for planning, are a lot. And so we want to, which I think we spoke about here, you heard others speak about in the panel as well, that's really important to try to lighten the load so that teachers can then use all of their expertise and their knowledge of their students to implement that curriculum as effectively as they can and responsive to the needs of each individual student. And so, yes, we are aware that in some ways having a sort of homegrown curriculum often does make it a little harder for teachers to plan from, and so that is one of the major impetus behind us looking at more published curriculum.
Thank you. And my next question, anyone can answer, and it's, what does research show about how the different lengths of text prepare students for higher level learning, particularly within college and also career readiness? I know when y'all were talking about the difference between reading full text and reading passages, I kind of thought back to the SAT and that kind of disconnect between the passage-focused instruction that we kind of get throughout high school and also what like college ELA curriculum looks like and the difference between that. So if anyone could speak to the disconnect between the two.
I've done a little research on that. I've talked to a number of college-level professors, instructors who have, this has been covered in the media. They're finding that college students in the last 5 to 10 years are not able to do the kind of reading at the length that they used to be able to do. And I would say this is directly traceable to the absence of full-length books and novels at the high school level. We have high school students, graduating, and I've heard from some even in the District of Columbia, who basically never had to read a novel during their high school careers, and that does not equip them, that does not build the kind of reading stamina and the ability to analyze full-length text that is necessary to do well in college.
Thank you. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Representative Warrior.
Hello. First off, I would like to thank you all for your testimonies. I do have a question, and this applies to anyone who can answer. I'm noticing a trend in not only high school students, but students all across the district who really don't have an interest in reading anymore, specifically for the fact that learning in class has been more for standardized tests and not for the benefits of the student. So I was going to ask if there was any resources that you know that are out there that can help ensure that students have fun while reading and, you know, stay interested in reading. And if so, if there was a few that you could possibly list so we could, you know, take them into consideration and somehow implement them into our system.
Thank you for that question. I think that speaks to the importance of having a curriculum where students are reading high interest, high engagement, full-length texts. In our curriculum, there are books that I think students wouldn't automatically think they would find interesting, but when it's connected to other background knowledge building, and when they're relating what's happening in that text to perhaps what's happening today, that makes the text more interesting, and it helps them to build more stamina for reading. But I think there's also a balance. Like they have to have, I think students need to have access to high interest texts, like a robust classroom library, time during the day to be able to read for interest and to be able to make those connections to what they're learning in their class, to what they like to read outside of class. So, I mean, I think it's a balance of having the right sources in your curriculum, but also just having that availability and that time for students to actually read for interest, whether that's reading a novel, whether it's reading nonfiction, whether it's reading a magazine, reading a sports almanac or whatnot. So I think it's a balance between the two.
Sure, I'd just like to, I agree, and I just want to state that we really pride ourselves in DCPS in trying to promote a broad curriculum that is not just focused on standardized testing. And I know sometimes it may, you know, maybe that doesn't feel like the lived experience for every child in every classroom, but that is our goal, that we are not preparing students just for a test. Like our vision is for joyful and rigorous learning experiences where students are really growing like their ability to learn and think, whether it's in reading or any content area. So I hear that, and we always hear that tension, but just to state that that is definitely not what we ever would try to promote for our teachers or students. And I think you name a great, a really important tension.
Thank you all. Representative Best.
Hey everyone. So I just want to say thank you for being here and thank you for the work that you all do. Prior to my time at DCPS, I actually did some work as a curriculum developer. And so I just, know all the intricacies that come into play. My question, and this is something that, I even thought about like myself in the absence of it. But as we do, adopt different processes or curriculum, like how are we engaging or involving our families in these decisions? And do you all see opportunities for that?
Well, I can say that for this experience that we're going through right now with Common Lit, because it is a 2-year pilot and we're kind of being very thoughtful and slow about it, we do have opportunities built in our plan to gather feedback, through surveys from families. We're also about to have a family event where we're going to kind of have a convening and for families who want to learn more and understand more. So I think that this is a great I can say we haven't necessarily done that level of family engagement for every other curriculum choice that we've made, but I think this is something we're learning from and I think can be a great opportunity for us going forward.
Very similarly, I don't think that we have taken advantage of feedback from families in adopting curricula as much as we could have, and that's definitely something that we're thinking about for future adoptions. But what we do try to do now is make sure that our families are aware of what we are studying, what are the books that we're looking at in our curriculum, and then offer opportunities for them to contact us, provide feedback, Each of our schools will have student-led conferences in which parents come in and partner with their student and with the teachers to learn more about the curriculum that they're learning, and students have the opportunity to share with their families their own data and how they're progressing in the curriculum. But there are more opportunities for us to bring in families more from the get-go rather than wait until after adoption to then bring them in.
Yeah, and so like I know that especially when you're implementing new things, like there's so many different things you have to do and different people you have to connect with. But I would just urge as someone who's like been in that family engagement space to continue to engage families early on in the process, and that's all. But still, thank you again for all that you do.
Representative Chang.
Thank you all for this very engaging panel. I want to thank my colleague, Rep. Goulet, for having the idea of bringing this forward. And thank you, Corey, Abe, Superintendent, for partnering so closely with me and my colleagues on the board over the last 5 years to move all of this work forward. Karen, you named Marion Wolf. I just want to add that as we think about moving beyond the incentive structures of just getting to test scores, one of the things from her latest book that really resonated with me is how short texts and long texts light up different parts of the empathy brain. And so the short texts don't light up the empathy part of the brain, which terrifies me, right? When we think about, yes, it's great that we're teaching our kids how to sound out words and maybe understand the meaning behind it, but not enough to step into someone's shoes and understand their experiences, right? And so it really resonated with me and what you're advocating for. And with that, right, I think it also, this whole panel makes me think of the broader structural incentives that have led us to the point that we're at, right? And I understand why every actor across the system has made the decisions to shorten at the same time, right? And how we, what are the actionable things that we do as a board, as a city, given the federal incentive structures, if not international ranking structures that we all exist in, right? What do we do amidst and against that? That is I think one of the operational questions for me, because I don't think anyone actually disagrees, right, when we have this conversation. And then another sort of big theme that I don't have time to hear your answers on in the next 40 seconds, but would love a chance to follow up on individually. All of our teachers and students are using AI. When I go into classrooms and talk with high school students too, I think a lot of you are listening to books and not reading them to begin with, summarizing them on GPT anyways. And so what do we do amidst that reality as well, is something that I'm really, I think we have to be thinking about. And so if I may, would love to follow up with you on these and other questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Henderson.
Thank you all for your testimony. I'm going to start with Ms. Colgan. So I'm thinking we have the Common Core standards. We have requirements that you follow science of reading. We have budgetary constraints. We have time constraints. We have accountability system that puts pressure on you. As you're choosing a curriculum, you have limited curriculum options. As you're choosing, you've already mentioned a few tension points, but like what are the tension points as you're trying to like satisfy all these? You've also got students of varying abilities. What are the tensions and what are the kind of constraining points as you try to thread that?
Sure, it's a great question. I mean, you've named a lot of them, but really what we I mean, the way I think of it is trying to get really clear on what we want to be true about a curriculum and knowing that no curriculum is perfect. But I mean, I think for us, what's most important is, as I named, alignment to the standards, but more importantly, for ELA in particular, more importantly to those instructional shifts. So we want to make sure that curriculum is, because that's based on research on what is preparing students the most. And then we, of course, always have, as you named, like budgetary constraints. We also want to make sure that there's buy-in from our educators, because they're the ones who have to implement the curriculum. And so the ease of use of the curriculum, and what ends up being a tension point is that many educators have many different and sometimes conflicting things to say. So I think in novels in particular has been a tension point in my 17 years here, because I've been connected to ELA curriculum my whole time here. You know, it's either too many novels or not enough novels or the wrong novels. And so it's very, very hard to kind of like get that one exactly right in the sweet spot. So trying to build in, if possible, a little bit of choice and autonomy for teachers, while, you know, having a very high floor, but allowing them some room to supplement or perhaps swap out.
And so you're using, some schools are using the Common Lit pilot. Are the other ones still doing the bespoke in-house?
Correct.
And are you doing like comparisons?
Yes, that'll be a part of the analysis.
Right. I'm out of time.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Johnson Law.
Thank you all so much for your testimony. I'm gonna center around our kids that have disabilities. So when you all are considering the ELA curriculum, like what elements do you all think should be in there to make sure it's accessible for our kids with disabilities? And then furthermore, for our educators, how are we giving them supports, both our general education teachers and our special education teachers, to be able to implement that curriculum for our students with disabilities? And this is to any of you.
Thank you. So when we adopted our curriculum, and even now, even though we're several years into using the same curriculum, our special education teachers receive the same content professional development that our general education teachers do, which is all grounded in our curriculum. Now, for our special educators and for our educators who work with multilingual students, their professional development might have an additional nuance because of the students that they serve, but it's still about unpacking the curriculum that's in front of us and helping our students, whether they have a disability or not, reach the grade level standards of the curriculum. So at Center City, we're just very, very intentional about the professional development that we're providing, and we don't skimp on that. I mean, I said in my testimony, like, we make a plan for professional development. We made a plan for professional development at the rollout that included every grade level teacher and everything from a paraprofessional inclusion teacher, all of our principals, assistant principals, everyone had the same amount of content training on that curriculum before we fully implemented. And by piloting some of those modules ahead of time, our teachers and our special educators were able to inform our rollout of the curriculum and help us see, you know, where are some of the areas that this curriculum might miss, where we're going to have to continue to bring in additional supplemental resources.
And for that nuance piece, do the general education teachers also get that training? Because I'm thinking about if you have a child who has a special need in the general education classroom, it's not just the responsibility of the special education teacher, but also that general education teacher as well.
Yes, and actually on my team, I lead our curriculum and instruction department and our student support services department, which includes special education. So my team includes instructional coaches, and we work side by side. Often, in most of our classroom, there's a teacher and a co-teacher, an inclusion teacher. We use a full inclusion model, and when we're coaching those teachers, there is, for example, a math specialist side by side with a special education specialist who's coaching the co-teaching team. I'm not saying we always get it perfect, but that is what we strive for. So when we're creating professional development and coaching plans, both of those roles are taken into account.
Thank you all so much. I'm out of time. Thank you.
Representative Thompson.
Good evening, everyone, and good to see you, Natalie. I will say my sister is watching the live stream, and she wanted you to know that she really appreciated your scarf sweater combo. As state board members, our role is mostly standards. What are the opportunities for us as the state board, specifically around this issue, and where are places that might not be in our direct authority, but you are like, if you could take this thing away or do this thing, what would you like to see us do? And that's to anyone.
Well, I'll just briefly say that I think you have sort of a bully pulpit to spread the message that teaching the standards directly is not the goal of instruction, and that doesn't mean you ignore them, but what you need to do is put the text in the foreground and bring in those standards as appropriate to help students understand a particular text or topic. So, you could at least try to get that message out there, because it's very deeply ingrained in many educators that they should be teaching the standards.
I can't echo that more loudly. As someone who writes in education and understands the role of headlines, if I was going to publish what I've said to you this evening, the headline I would put on it is, we're in the post-standards era. And the standards were excellent. They were better than any previous standards, but what we've done, they're 14 years old, and we're now all reckoning with what we've learned about what worked and what didn't, and some of what didn't work comes down to misunderstandings about the goal of the standards. I led my testimony by emphasizing what standards authors like Sue Pimentel tried to emphasize for us, which was the importance of the text at the heart of instruction. And books are all over the standards guidance documents if you look, but the standards authors didn't publish a list of books. That was a choice to leave local control to our school districts and our teachers. And as you've heard from panelists, there's plenty of room for that, but at the same time, we need to be cognizant at this particular moment of where we've missed some of those between the lines messages, like books really matter, volume of reading really matters, an over-reliance on passages will not get you to the volume of reading you need, trying to act like standards are in fact the guidepost for what daily classroom instruction should look like is not the way. And really, I know I'm running short on time, but if you read into the details of what I suspect all of us have linked, there's lots there for you to stand on a bully pulpit about. Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Yes. Thank you all for being here tonight and for all the contributions to this discussion. Ms. Colgan, I want to start with you. In reference to some of my colleagues, you had thought about what we want to be true in our schools. And I want to focus on the books piece. And I know there's not like an exact number, but in terms of the vision or standard we want to be setting, what is it that we want to be true for, like, what number of books or the quality of books that students are reading in middle school and high school to be able to solve some of these problems? Where does your thinking go with that?
Yeah, it is a hard question to answer. As I said, it's always been a point of conflict, I guess you could say. But I do think that I absolutely value the reading of full text. And it could be novels, it could also be nonfiction text, but that longer form reading I think is really important, as we've heard tonight. So we definitely want to make sure that students have some experience with that. We also want to make sure that students read broadly a lot of different types of reading. So in both the Common Lit and our DCPS curriculum, there's also speeches, short stories, poems, articles. And I think it's important for students to experience all of that. And, they may respond differently to different ones. And one of the things that I really appreciate about, again, both curricula, how they're organized, is this idea of text sets. And when you read multiple texts, you know, one might be a short story, the other might be an article. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I only have 80 seconds left, so I appreciate the question and want to continue exploring that. Ms. Wexler, my next question is going to come to you. I don't know if you remember, we met about a decade ago at an Empower Ed presentation, and I remember talking to you afterwards about what I thought I was doing for teaching writing, and then learned about the Hockman method through you and the Writing Revolution, and since benefited my instruction from that. So I wanted to say thank you. As we move to this shift to like knowledge building curriculum and like away from like letting the standards lead to like having a richer set of curriculum, I'm curious what like one or two things you think our DC schools could benefit from in making that shift.
Well, I do think you mentioned writing, and I think, you know, we talk about reading a lot. We don't talk about writing that much. Having students write about what they are learning in any subject is a huge boost to their retention of information and their understanding. So, and it has to be made manageable, as I probably mentioned to you, so that teaching has to be explicit. It has to start at the sentence level and has to be grounded in, embedded in whatever content students are learning, including novels.
Vice President Goulet.
I want to thank all of you for coming out tonight and for just really thoughtful testimony. This is really helpful to what I think we need to do next as a board on this. So this became on my radar screen after the deal. Parents raised this issue because a number of the full-length novels had been removed from the curriculum there, and they were very concerned about it. They had not been informed of the change. They learned of the change when their students came back and told them they wouldn't be reading the novels that they had traditionally. So what I'd like to do, since I'll never have enough time in 2 minutes and 30 seconds to get into this in detail, is to follow back up with you. I want to get a resolution together, but I want to put on the record what the concerns are of the parents. The first thing was the transparency. They want to make sure that when there's curriculum changes, that the LSAT is informed ahead of time. Second, they want to make sure that they then have an opportunity to provide feedback. Now, that doesn't necessarily give them veto power over the decision, but it does have the ability then for them to provide comment to DCPS or to charter schools in this case, if either have it. And then last, they would like to see a curriculum that focuses more on developing skills for college and career, which includes full-length novels, versus the shorter texts that are more geared towards success on testing. And they pointed out that it's important for students' attention span, and to build upon, I think, what you said, Ms. Wexler, the situation about them writing helps them learn. Also, the classroom discussion is what the parents said helps the students learn. So developing those skills for college where they discuss the concepts that they've read in a novel with their peers and then learn from that. So I think it's important as we move forward with this to try to think about what skills we're measuring. I know we talk about the test scores with DCPS, and that's one point of success that we're measuring. But the other point of success is how our kids are prepared for college or for careers, and how many of our students are graduating from college within the 4 years. And I think that's where we've struggled. We've seen success on test scores, those have rebounded, but we haven't seen similar success with the college, with college retention, college graduation. So that's what I'd like to work on, is trying to find the right balance on this, certainly working with all of you in the aftermath of this. And I'm not going to try to get to any questions, but I will follow back up with each of you because we're going to come back to this in the form of a resolution next. So thank you so much for your testimony tonight.
President Patterson.
Thank you. I want to thank each of you for your very thoughtful testimonies this evening. They informed us very much, and you've heard from my Vice President some of the next actions that we're going to be looking at. So thank you for just coming out and informing us on how we're going to look at this. So thank you so much. I want to thank my colleagues for all the great questions that they asked, especially our students. I know you guys looked kind of shocked at some of the questions that they asked, because they always ask really great questions. And it's always great to hear their questions from a student perspective, so thank you. I have no questions myself because my colleagues have asked so great questions, so I'm going to release you at this particular time. So thank you for your time. At this time, the State Board will adjourn for a quick break before we welcome our public witnesses. Since we're moving along pretty well, I'm going to make this a very quick break. The time actually right now is, let me make sure I get the right time, is 6:54. I'm going to give us to 7 o'clock. Please be back on time as I gavel in. Thank you very much.
Good to see you. Hello, Director Butler.
Yes, how are you? Are you doing well?
Oh, thank you. This is awesome. That is awesome. Okay, I'm like so behind my emails.
Okay, so it is the inbox.
That's awesome. Thank you.
It like restores the phone, so you might, depending on if you remember your iPhone login. Yeah, if you have that, it should restore everything. If you don't have the iPhone login, it'll just start like it does before you'll
What was the?
I've been talking to several people earlier this year. There was Octo every year, I think, has it somehow set up that people need to update their password, but it gives you like an hour. If you don't see the like
I did not see it in that hour.
it locks people out.
Okay.
And the only thing that they can do now is like to unlock it and to restore the phone.
Got it. Thank you so much. And thank you for that. This will be good for all of us, you know?
No, the team is already very excited about it. It's good for the team too. So I'm just. Yeah, I'm trying to get excited. Yeah. My board. That, I would say. Huh? For a little bit of efficiency. Yeah, it just came out. We'll see it when I think. No, this is the Undersecretary of the Office of Right, Civil Rights Division, something of the Department of Ed. doesn't come off as like, it doesn't. It doesn't tank. It's like, it sounds like somebody read this. It's like, y'all need to get these things done. This is our 4 recommendations. Look, it literally took, I had to tell her, let the people who it is addressed to address it first. Yes. Yeah, I'm like, I'm not aware that they have turned in a report to DCPS say here, whatever. Yeah, and I'm like, shocked. Like, I was let her know. I'm just like, don't be calling the chancellor, sending emails over there. Or kids. So where's your 5 and 6-year-old? That's super helpful. They're all there together. The view is wonderful.
Okay, I appreciate all the lively conversations that are going on, but I'm going to keep my promise to everyone and gavel us back in. So if my colleagues could come back to the dais, I would greatly appreciate it. Colleagues, back to the dais. Colleagues. That includes my vice president. We hear from public witnesses at every public meeting, and your comments become part of the official record. If you would like to speak at a future public meeting, please sign up on our website at sboe.dc.gov or contact our staff by email at sboe@dc.gov or by phone at 202-741-0888. Sign-up closes 48 hours before the public meeting. We have 7 public witnesses who have signed up to share this evening. As a reminder, all public witnesses must share a copy of your testimony with our staff at sboe.dc.gov so we can add it to the public record. We will hear from those that are in attendance in a panel format. Each witness will have up to 3 minutes to provide comments. If you are with us in person, please note that you must use one of the microphones at the table which are already on. The timer light on the table will be green for the first 2 minutes and a half, yellow at the last 30 seconds, and red after 3 minutes have elapsed. After the panel, we will pause for questions from the State Board members. If members have questions for public witnesses, they have up to 3 minutes, just like before, and it includes your question and comments from the panelists that you ask. Executive Director Butler will call the public witnesses. She will also assist with timing to ensure our witnesses and members stay within their allotted time. Director Butler, please call the first round of witnesses.
Thank you. Laura Fuchs, Noah Doherty, Josh Boots, Linda Carpenter Grantham, Mitch Fuchs, you can go ahead. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Eric Bless Carpenter, I see what you're saying. I'm confused. I think I called the wrong person. Do you want me to? Yes, ma'am. Okay. I was looking for Miss Avril Livingston Waldman. Mr. Ariel Livingston Walden. Yes. I have that on it. And we'll start with Ms. Fuchs.
All right, thank you. So in DC, we're back to examining the awarding of diplomas. DC public schools and DC charters are unfortunately not systemically in the interest of educating students. As those in power have proven repeatedly, they're interested in metrics like test scores, attendance, and graduation rates. They have proven time and again that they are willing to do whatever it takes in order to achieve those results as quickly as possible. They're interested in looking good over actually doing good. If we want to ensure that our students have access to time with professional educators, then we have to ensure that standards are in place. Ask any elementary educator how much time is spent on science instruction. With few exceptions, the answer will be 0 hours. Ask them how much time is spent on social studies. Maybe it's a little higher than 0, but likely just a reading on history as part of another literacy block. How is this possible? Because legally it is not mandated that it be provided, so it isn't, especially at schools with low test scores. The graduation requirements combined with the education standards are some of the few policies that guarantee a student's right to learn a wide variety of subjects and not have their education stripped down to only those subject areas and skills that are tested. The credit hour is a right to time in front of an educator. When you remove that right, when you provide flexibility from that right, when you allow a school to innovate around that right, guess what? The right disappears. Nobody needs to innovate or get flexibility to create a higher standard, which they always like to claim. They need it in order to lower the standard. As has been brought to light repeatedly in front of this very body and nationwide by concerned stakeholders, there is intense pressure on schools to graduate students even if they are not fully prepared for whatever the next steps may bring. Once again, I'm seeing the perennial call for greater flexibility around graduation requirements and the credit hour. This innovative idea that we have seen repeatedly brought up by DCPS and charter LEAs for the past decade plus will drastically allow LEAs to reduce the resources they put in our schools and classrooms and will cause us to become even more of a push-out factory than the pressure already allows for. How do I know this? Credit recovery programs. Over the last years, DCPS and charter LEAs have mismanaged credit recovery and allowed for greatly reduced workloads, education and standards, so that students get pushed through despite having previously failed courses. What is even worse is the notion that a student can test out or just do a few assignments and master material. This ultimately undermines everything that a student does in our classrooms. As someone who's extremely opposed to standardized testing, I do not believe that a test demonstrates what someone has learned. It is one method. And yes, mastery-based learning sounds lovely in theory, but this is DC, the land of zero oversight, hyper-capitalism and private contracting and competition between LEAs to graduate the most students. The credit hour is the only reason our students offer more programming and opportunities than our middle schools, and we need to maintain what we have and not lower our standards. Thank you.
Thank you. Noah Doherty.
Good evening. My name is Noah Doherty. I'm a Ward 2 resident and the Director of School Talent and Academic Strategy at the DC Charter School Alliance. I want to thank board members for their ongoing engagement with our leaders, the Alliance, and for including a staff member from the PCSB on the task force. I spoke about OSCE's proposal to reimagine graduation requirements in January. We continue to support many of the proposals, and tonight I'd like to share alternatives and adjustments to those proposals we believe warrant more consideration, the details of which I outline in my written testimony. We're also open to pausing or extending this process to incorporate data from the Office of Education through Employment Pathways, allowing recommendations to adjust based on those findings. We support the creation of endorsement options and believe that clarity is critical. We recommend explicitly stating that endorsements are optional for LEAs to offer and optional for students to pursue. Public high schools in DC, both district and charter, are designed with different programs and focuses, and the range of endorsement options reflects that diversity. We believe being explicit about the optionality of these endorsements for both students and for LEAs will clear up any potential confusion. We agree with increasing the number of post-secondary touchpoints and recommend creating more flexibility in when those touchpoints can occur and who can lead them with students. Instead of requiring them in particular grades, we recommend allowing them to occur when they are most relevant for each student in their high school journey. We also recommend allowing a broader range of staff members to lead these touchpoints, such as college and career advisors, CTE teachers, JROTC advisors, or other in-house staff experts who are aligned to a student's post-secondary plans. This flexibility also acknowledges that tripling the number of touchpoints requires more time from staff members, and this would engage the entire community to support a student's post-secondary success. We do not recommend requiring a capstone project for graduation because there's limited research on its impact and because it's a significant investment in time, talent, and resources. However, we do encourage OSSI to develop guidance for these projects, explore ways to expand their use and students' equitable access to them, and provide resources and financial incentives to schools that choose to offer them. The financial literacy standards are important for students, and we believe there is more than one way for students to access this information. We recommend that LEAs have the flexibility to deliver those standards through either a standalone financial literacy course, by incorporating those standards into an existing course or across advisory periods, or through a competency-based pathway. Preparing students for post-secondary success is work that happens over a student's entire high school journey, not just in a standalone course, and we recommend that LEAs all provide the same experiences for students, including taking an interest inventory, having the recommended 3 touch points, and engaging in post-secondary exploration aligned to their interests and goals. And finally, a practical studies diploma is not a credential, and it can harm the very students it is meant to support. We recommend that OSSI provide guidance for LEAs and IEP teams on how to utilize the existing standard diploma modification process to incorporate the elements proposed in the practical studies diploma as potential modifications. Thank you, and I welcome your questions.
Thank you. Ariel. You go straight down the line. Okay. There's no need to skip. Sorry.
Good evening, State Board members. Thank you for all your work and leadership. I'm Ariel Levinson Waldman with SEDEC DC. Headquartered at UDC and with offices in Ward 8. At SEDEC DC, we serve residents from all 8 wards. Our mission is to safeguard the legal rights and financial health of our neighbors here in DC with lower and moderate incomes. Access to financial education can increase a student's lifetime earnings in really exciting ways. Research shows a benefit of over $100,000 over the lifetime for kids, including overall reduced debt, improved borrowing rates, and more effective long-term investment strategies. We are urging the district to follow this trend from around the country in our public school curriculum and planning, and have begun closely related work in our nonprofit private sector activities. Following a number of years of conducting community education workshops at the request of UDC Community College and the Congress Heights campus and others, SEDEC DC launched our financial empowerment program in 2023, led by my colleagues Stephen Jefferson and Sophie Adler, who are here tonight, along with my colleague Melissa Mazard, who we'll hear from, one of our terrific financial counselors deep into this work. Participants in this program have told us in written surveys about the direct, tangible, and positive impacts. 85% said they made changes to their financial habits as a result. 90% said they recommend it to friends and family. Seeing the impact the program has already had, we're both excited about continuing the growth of that work and also the possibility of tens of thousands of families, tens of thousands of kids in our DC high schools receiving comparable financial tools and information to empower their lives as part of our local support system for young people. SEDEC DC shared feedback 2 years ago and comments on OSSI's excellent proposal for financial literacy standards. National evaluators have looked at where we are now in the district and given us an F. The relevant review agency stated the district, quote, needs to require a high school standalone personal finance course to improve and come up to par with our neighbors in Virginia and Maryland who have showed that it can be done. These statistics have revealed the need, the urgency to adopt these standards and to then implement them in the process that's in a really exciting way coming through this body. We appreciate that OSSI so clearly listened to stakeholders when creating the proposals and included a section on managing risk, for example. We support the proposed graduation requirement of a half-credit financial literacy semester-long course and also the related half-credit course in career preparations. We look forward to supporting OSSI implementation. We look forward to sharing further thoughts with the State Board at upcoming hearings and also in supporting clients and community members, many of whom have been learning about what the State Board is up to and want to come to the April hearing and share their views, and that's something that we think is so important, and we will be supporting that in weeks to come. Meanwhile, here tonight, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Patterson, members of the board and staff.
My name is Josh Boots, Executive Director of Empower K-12, an education data nonprofit that operates the DC Data and Math Hubs, serving 39 charter school districts plus DCPS. I want to begin by recognizing the strong foundations for the next generation of high school that this board, OSSE, and the broader community have already invested in. The DC graduate profile, the ambitious goals of Compact 2043, OSSE's research-informed grad requirements proposal, all represent meaningful progress. I'm here to offer a few additional principles that I hope will be useful as the board finalizes the requirements for high school graduation. First, meaningful schedule flexibility will strengthen pathways. The Compact 2043 envisions every student accessing paid internships, dual enrollment, CTE sequences, and apprenticeships. Thoughtful consolidation of requirements while maintaining high standards gives students room for college and career asset building experiences that lead to high-wage career pathways. Second, the strongest requirements will backwards map from the graduate profile through the entire K-12 continuum, ensuring that there is vertical alignment from elementary school through high school rather than treating graduation requirements as isolated high school adjustments. Third, rigorous competency-based pathways to earn high school credit recognizes diverse forms of mastery. Students who pass rigorous assessments, earn industry credentials, and demonstrate skills through work-based learning opportunities are exhibiting real competency. Comprehensive OSSE guidance around competency-based credit, published alongside the next iteration of requirements, will provide that essential infrastructure that is required for the flexible system that we envision. Fourth, accountability centered around meaningful milestones and disaggregated by students' prior performance and at high school entry will serve students and schools well. 9th grade on track, end of 10th grade CAPE tests in math and reading instead of in-course assessments, while including school value-added growth, measures that indicate student readiness to thrive in college and career via entrance exams, dual enrollment credits, CTE credits, participation in work-based learning experiences are all essential. Finally, I wanted to highlight an extraordinary opportunity that is before us. This summer, the Education Through Employment Pathways database will provide longitudinal data connecting high school experiences to actual college and career outcomes for DC graduates for the first time. This is a genuine inflection point. The district will be able to see how pathways, credentials, and course sequences lead to post-secondary completion and economic mobility. I respectfully encourage that this board and OSSE incorporate a data review checkpoint this summer as part of this high school graduation requirements approval process. It represents an opportunity for us to examine what the evidence reveals about those final requirements and reflect on what we learn. This would strengthen any proposal because the changes would then be grounded in the evidence that we have about the prior requirements. We're in a remarkable position of strength. This board has done a lot of great work. Happy to help and support any other things around data moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now have a round of member questions, starting with our students. Representative Dinkins.
Thank you all so much. So my first question is for Mr. Doherty. How do the recommendations that were provided align with college admissions expectations and for competitive institutions?
If I heard you correctly, how do they align to college admissions expectations? Well, we absolutely support the 4 endorsement options, which we think create a lot of opportunities for students to demonstrate both advanced coursework, their own individualized interests, and as well as CTE pathways. So we think there are a lot of opportunities for students to pursue advanced coursework that will get them into the most competitive colleges. We also think that creating flexibility creates more opportunities for students to pursue those courses, advanced courses, internships, career things that are going to also create an opportunity for them to get into the best colleges they want to.
Thank you. I also have an additional question about capstones. So if capstones are not recommended, what alternative opportunities can students have to demonstrate cumulative learning
Absolutely. We definitely recommend that OSSE look into different ways where we can expand capstone opportunities to more LEAs. We think that we want to make sure that capstones are also, that students have equitable access to them, because we know that capstones can be really meaningful experiences. We don't think that they should be required for graduation, though. I think that's the major difference, is that we think this can be a really, really meaningful experience, but it takes a lot to make sure that that happens, and we want to make sure that we are being kind of realistic around how we make sure that we really prepare all our students for success when they graduate.
Thank you so much. And my last question is for Mr. Boots. So I know that there was mentioned about like data and how it can like play a part in the future, but I was wondering how data can, from connecting high school experiences, can be actionable for current students as well.
Great question. Love it. Thank you. We won't have a lot of that data coming out this summer. So for the first time, we are connecting our students to what they did in college and in career. So we would know by age 25, like how did our students that did this X in high school, what were their pathways, what did they earn now at age 25? And so I think that data, we're gonna get it out for the first time this summer. We're gonna put additional resources in the hands of high schools very soon. And I think that will just be critical for helping our families and our students understand, like, what are the pathways that our kids took and what were their outcomes by age 25.
Thank you. I'd like to yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Representative Mozumdar.
Thank you all so much for your testimony. My first question is for Mr. Doherty, and I wanted to know about the recommendations surrounding financial literacy as a graduation requirement, what it would look like to integrate financial literacy education into a competency-based pathway, like just some more specifics as to like what students could expect from that particular recommendation.
Absolutely. I think there are a couple of different ways that competency-based education is showing up in other schools and other states as well. And one way is actually being able to say, hey, here are the standards. I can take an exam and actually just demonstrate that I have competency in this, which actually then frees up more credits for that student to pursue other interests or other courses, at least with the competency-based one. And then with integrating it into different courses, there is research, I think that, or we are seeing a lot of, we're seeing a lot of evidence in a lot of our schools that are currently integrating the financial literacy standards into math courses, economics courses, seminar courses, things like that.
Thank you, and that kind of leads perfectly into my next question, which could be for either you or Mr. Levinson-Waldman as well, about what it really looks like to align financial literacy in courses such as social studies or U.S. history or economics, for instance, like how we kind of balance the financial literacy requirements with the actual course requirements of those classes.
I think I don't have a lot of information about social studies specifically. I do know that there is some research around math and economics as different areas where we do see financial literacy courses, standards, fitting really well with the content, because it creates the opportunity to provide context, right, for some of those mathematical problems or problem sets that they're doing. So I think that's the place where we're seeing in a lot of public charter schools where when those standards are being integrated into math or economics courses, we're seeing a lot more, I think, engagement and kind of with that real world experience.
Yeah, I'll echo all of that, and thank you for the question. I also just want to shout out the Basis School, which is producing great leaders on our state board and also some of our top interns at SEDEC DC. So thank you for the thoughtful question and all you're doing. I guess I'll say two things. First, as was just said, all sorts of exciting opportunities to integrate it, some of those core competencies into storytelling in our history and to illustrating examples of financial positive and negative consequences of choices made in math, similar opportunities. But also to say that what we've seen in Maryland and Virginia, and I think the increasing trend and best practice is to have a standalone course where these ideas of budgeting and credit, savings, investment, what is a bank, what is a paycheck, what is FICA, what are these core economic activities that we want all of our 18 and 19-year-olds to have those core competencies on, that those are addressed in an unsubtle way, and then are available for those additional parallel discussions in those other courses.
I'm sorry, you're out of time.
Thank you.
Representative Chamberlain.
Hi, guys. Thank you for coming and speaking to us. I'd like to ask Ms. Fuchs if you could, I don't know, this board loves this question, but like if you had a magic wand, it's one of my favorite ways to phrase what would you like. I want to know what you would change about our graduation requirements specifically. I'm sorry, I don't have your written testimony here, but I want to know what you would see as ideal for us to be able to do.
So I'm someone who just believes that in this system that we have, that the second you take anything off the table, those schools with the least will lose it. So if you remove a science credit, it's gone. My school will not have it anymore where I taught for 18 years. I know that because we only offer 2 foreign languages at the entry level because that's all we can afford. because that's all we're given the money to afford. So whatever gets removed will disappear from a lot of places. That includes then the time. I get like a credit hour, we can look at it and be like, this is outdated. Okay, but it's the bare minimum standard. And I'm seeing schools where when they get the flexibility, they essentially just remove time in the classroom and try to graduate people faster. And to me, that is robbery from students. And unfortunately, we are in a race to the bottom situation, not a race to the top in this system, because graduation rates are what we're looking at, not how well are they then prepared for the future. It's just, how can I get my ACGR up? And that means getting this kid out of here. We see it in summer school, we see it in credit recovery. So lots of people are trying to cheat. And so I say that to say, I don't think we have a problem with our current graduation standards. We could add something to it here and there, but honestly, I think we already have flexibility built in with 32 credits being earned by most students. And so we are creating a problem that doesn't exist, and we are potentially allowing a backdoor entry, one that I've been fighting for over a decade, to prevent the robbery from students of their right to an education. And I don't know that there's any other tool we have right now that is protecting that right. We can see it in middle schools where they often don't get science or social studies. They just don't get it at some of our schools. And so like the question then is, why not? Because it's not required. And so then they just don't get it. At elementary, it's even worse. I've, teachers like having a science committee because they're like, I can't even teach science. We don't have that at my school. And it's not even one of our worst off schools. So I guess like, whatever we do, like I want to always provide students more and give them more opportunities. I think that's a beautiful thing. But we have to recognize the graduation standards and the requirements for what they are, a floor. And anything we take away from it will disappear in the name of flexibility.
Thank you. Representative Chang.
No, I'd love your response.
If I had a magic wand, I would really think about how we balance the requirements we want to make sure every single student has with the flexibility to make sure that students, as they discover their own interests, can really pursue them. I think one of the reasons why we advocate for more flexibility in the courses students take is that we recognize that especially as students begin looking for like internships or job placement externships, having that flexibility to actually get to the internship, having the flexibility to, like, that's actually really, really important, right? So I do think that when to answer the question, I think that having a really good balance of these are the ways we make sure that every student is exposed to a wide range of options and can really explore what they're passionate about, is then balanced with the opportunity to really dive into that and explore that in more depth.
Thanks. And Josh, we've talked about this before. I think it would just be helpful to kind of zoom out and set the stage for us as we think about math in more depth too, of where are we right now in terms of math outcomes and how far have we gotten with the task force and things that have already been put into motion.
Great question. Thank you for the question about math. I mean, DC is the most improved state in math outcomes since 2022. Our third, fourth, and fifth graders are likely to be above pre-pandemic levels of achievement by the end of this year. But with what Laura said, we actually did have the highest graduation rates that we've ever reported, but also the lowest rates of lowest SAT scores and the lowest APIB scores for our graduating class. So there is something there, but those are also the kids that were most impacted by the pandemic, those that were in elementary and middle school. Our lowest elementary school students have been in elementary school for the most part. So there's been a lot of progress. There's a lot of acceleration happening. There's a lot more we need to have happen.
Mr. Doherty, question about your statement on the endorsement options. If making endorsements optional for LEAs, if endorsements are optional for LEAs, how would we ensure that students have equitable access to those options?
Absolutely. I think that just because we make them optional for LEAs, there's still a huge incentive for public charter schools to offer those endorsements. The most important form of accountability for public charter schools are the families who enroll their students in that school. And if families don't feel like that school is offering the kind of educational experience and opportunities, especially ones that are available to them, then they will look for another place to send their child, and that's something we very much support. So we think that making sure that they are optional ensures that each LEA can decide of the endorsements that are out there, which are the ones that align to their program, which are the ones that align to their mission, to the needs of their students. And we have a really wide variety of high schools, and I think that it makes sense to create that kind of choice across the different schools.
Thank you. And another question about, you talked about having flexibility on who can provide counseling or advising at the touch points, and I am certain that our task force will have discussion about that, with the other side being insisting that whoever is providing that advice needs to be a highly qualified counselor. And so I wonder how you would respond to that.
I think that making sure that counselors are a part of this process is really, really important. I think what I would suggest, though, is that a student who is choosing to join the military versus a student who is looking to pursue a job certification versus a student who's looking to attend a four-year college after high school might all need different things and might actually benefit from speaking with different individuals to plan their post-secondary success. So a student going to the military would really benefit from speaking to the JROTC advisor to plan that out. A student who's looking to go into a job certification course should talk to the expert around that, and a student who's looking to go to college should talk to the expert, to the college advisor about that.
All right, thank you. And Ms. Fuchs, could you say a little bit more about, you said there's flexibility already built into the system. Could you explain more what you mean by that?
So what I find is that, I mean, I taught at H.D. Woodson for 18 years. Plenty of students were able to take internships. Plenty of students were able to do dual enrollment. Some students were doing both and doing AP. Like, if a student wants to do it, there are opportunities that already exist. I think that, you know, unfortunately there is a lot of pressure to double block things like math and English. It already exists, and that does remove some of it, but we could just remove some of the testing pressure and open up even more credit, so we stop double blocking English and math in the 9th and 10th grades and offer even more opportunities to students. So I think, like, there's just already a lot of credits built into these systems as they exist, and that students are taking advantage of those opportunities already, including CTE. Sorry.
Representative Thompson.
Good evening. I want to thank everyone for their testimony. I was super excited to see your testimony. The gentleman from, how do you say it?
Thank you. From ZEDEC DC.
ZEDEC DC. I didn't want to mess it up.
No, all good.
So
Great word from the Bible, means justice.
Yeah, I know. Justice, equity, fairness, Deuteronomy. So I was really excited to see your testimony. I don't necessarily have a question. I will acknowledge that I tend to lean to your perspective as far as why a standalone course is important. I think what I am wrestling with in this larger panel is the idea that Ms. Fuchs put forth as far as what is the floor and what are we requiring of all students, with this idea of flexibility. And so I don't know, I think I want to hear more maybe about the particular constraints that would prevent LEAs from offering things like a standalone course in financial literacy, like CTE endorsements, and since you brought it up, Mr. Doherty, I would like to better understand those constraints and challenges.
Specifically for the financial literacy course?
For any of them, any of the ones you raised.
Mm-hmm. With financial literacy, one of the biggest reasons why we think that flexibility is important And this is one, we actually think it creates more opportunity for students to thrive and for that learning to be really meaningful. We would also, and I would respectfully share, which I shared in my written testimony, is that there is evidence that shows that standalone financial literacy courses are not having a big impact on student financial outcomes. Actually, the thing that really is having an impact on student financial outcomes long term is their proficiency in math. And so we have seen a lot of different ways in which public charter LEAs are incorporating those financial literacy standards into other courses, creating really meaningful experiences around that. So we think that flexibility doesn't create a floor.
May I interrupt? Because you're not actually answering my question. Mm-hmm. You're telling me reasons why it's not as important. I am actually looking for what are the challenges for LEAs to do what is currently proposed by OSSE, which is a financial literacy standalone course, or offer CTE endorsements. Like, I want to better understand why we should give them that flexibility in the first place. Like, why they can't do what is being asked.
Particularly in a really tough budget season that we're looking at right now, things like additional required courses require additional people, right? And I think that trade-off is something that we're really thoughtful about, is when you are requiring something, when you're devoting an FTE to teach that class, you're taking that from something else, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons why we
Thank
would
you, Mr. Doherty.
argue.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, and thank you all for your testimony. There have been a lot of great ideas shared at this panel that I'm still grappling with, and I don't know if I'll have time to ask all four of you a question, but I have thoughts and questions for all four of you. I think to start with this, I'm wondering, just and kind of thinking out loud around, is there insufficient flexibility in student schedules currently? Because I've been at public charter schools and now at a DCPS school, in which I've seen dual enrollment. I've seen students be able to take internships. Sometimes it's a challenge and a constraint, and sometimes it's not. And kind of this idea around, if we don't require the endorsement options, will there be access to them, and how will we ensure access to them? So I think that's just one thing where I'm kind of thinking out loud and parsing through what Mr. Doherty and Ms. Fuchs, you both have been saying. Errol, I want to ask you a question with regards to the financial literacy program, because I am amenable and encouraged about that, and we've heard from a lot of parents and community members that there's strong interest. What are your thoughts, whether it be with your program or more generally, as to who should teach it, and what are the core, well, I'll just start with that. Who should teach it, and like what resources should we use?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that's going to be a critical question in implementation. But we don't start on a fresh slate, which is really great news. We have best practices both from around the country and from around the region. There are some really good materials that are leverageable at really low cost to the district, using learning materials that have now been used by thousands and thousands of students with positive demonstrable results. So we get a lot of benefit from that. We also think it's really important that there be human beings involved, and that may be some combination of expanded opportunities for current teachers or guests from the community who can come in. We have seen, for example, in our work in wards 5, 7, and 8, the power of folks coming in and sharing their stories of entrepreneurial journeys. For example, Kamal Ben Ali coming and talking about his and his family's pathway towards entrepreneurship and how much of a difference it makes when the kids have that "if you see it, you can be it" moment. And so combining kind of those off-the-shelf materials with community perspective and some human teaching, particularly if integrated into these other classes, can be a very powerful combination.
Thank you. I only have 5 seconds, so I'll just say, Mr. Boots, I had a follow-up question for you that I don't have time to ask, but thank you for your testimony today, too, and for your presentation this past week.
Yep, I know, Bernice. 1 second. 85% of the 24 credits are already spoken for. That leaves, right, that leaves.
Stay out of trouble, Josh.
Mr. Boots?
It only leaves 15%
Mr. Boots?
or less than 1 per year credit hours for electives.
Thank
and
you,
the
Mr.
current
Boots.
requirements.
Thank you,
You're
Mr.
welcome.
Boots.
Sorry.
Director?
Representative Best.
If you would like to continue, you
No,
may go. I was literally about to do that anyway, Josh. Yeah, so something you said earlier just like really bothered me. And that was as you were talking about like highest, our graduation rates are improving, but it's the lowest like SAT scores. Can you kind of like dive into that a little more?
I mean, I think we need to dive into that more. In one sense, are we getting more students to be resilient and cross the finish line that otherwise wouldn't have? I think the answer is yes. And also, they are the low, right? Are they prepared for college and career? Question mark, right? We won't know for another 4 or 5 years once we get ETAP data down the line, like did they go into college, did they finish it at the same rates as the prior students? Hard to know right now. I think that's something we need to grapple with. We need to understand what is it that when the students do not complete, what happens to them, what pathways do they take, what CTE credentials do they have? Again, I think when you have less than one elective per year that you can take, are we giving students all the options of the things that would get them to come to school, to complete it, to invest in the math, to invest in the reading? And again, the extent to which, and I haven't been able to answer this question before, that like, when I taught 7th grade math, I did a lot of financial literacy because you know what? That's what those kids were interested in. I deviated for the curriculum, I talked about money, I talked about how it worked, and that worked. And this is why in my testimony I talked about thinking about high school graduation requirements and the continuum, and how we make sure that that is through the continuum.
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I think about like the flexibility component and making sure that we do have more flexibility for our students to do things that they like and they love and enjoy, things that make them want to come to school. I had another question, but I forgot it. And so, thank you.
Vice President Goulet.
I want to thank you all for your testimony. Ariel, I support having a financial literacy requirement. The only thing that parents emphasize, though, is the need to have flexibility so that it's not just a core course that if they want to take AP Economics or some other course that meets the requirement or exceeds the requirement, they're not then having to use one slot on their day for that. So I'm fully supportive of the effort, though, on that. I want to turn to Ms. Fuchs, and like what we wrestled with the expert panel is trying to figure out how we take the systemic focus of our school system from graduation rates and test scores to measuring success in college and career. How do we do that, and what do you think are the steps to get us there?
So for me, I think the responsibility of the government is to measure what we put in. And yes, we need to make sure that what we put in makes sense and is meeting the needs of the community. But I think that it's the government's responsibility to provide for our students, not really our students to provide a test score for us on the way out. So I think that my classroom as an AP government teacher for 15 years was more than that test. And I did have kids pass every single year, which not every school east of the river could boast. But certainly not the numbers that I hoped for. And I'd try everything I could do, and there was a lot of test prep involved. But it was so much more than that, right? There were so many experiences that we had, the debates, the discussions, things that aren't going to show up on a test that made it students' favorite class. It was not the test prep. I mean, they liked feeling confident walking into that exam, and they always did feel confident, sometimes overconfident. But they did walk in feeling confident that we had at least tried to prepare them. But so, it is difficult. I get that it's difficult then, because then, people would look at me and say, well, that was not a good investment. She didn't get them passed, right? They didn't all pass. But you'd ask the kids, and they're all going to say it's one of the best experiences they've ever had in education. So, it isn't easy. I'm not saying that it is. But I do think we go so heavy on those outcomes. And it's not that we shouldn't care at all. I did care deeply. I tried to get them to pass, all of them. But I also didn't judge a single child, nor myself, when it didn't happen. Because we did put all into it. They did too. And like, we just weren't there, but they still knew about the government. They could do it up and down. They just couldn't perform on that particular exam in that way. So I just think, you know, we have to try to think about, like, for me, it's the government's job to measure the inputs. Did we put the time in there? Were there educators who could do it? Did I have the materials, et cetera? Thank you.
President Patterson.
Thank you all. I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to go quickly. Noah, I'm going to give you one of those minutes, now 50-something seconds, to respond to what Representative Thompson, I don't think you got to finish your statement on that, so you got 40-something seconds to go. Go.
I think the big thing when we think about the, and I apologize, will you repeat the question? I do apologize.
I just want you to talk about what the challenges schools would face. I'm trying to understand if what we are asking, like if it can be done, right? And where are the places you need supports, where are the places, you know, can it be done?
It can be, but every decision, especially required decisions, is a trade-off of time and talent, right? The time that teachers have, the time that schools have to schedule students in different courses, and then the flexibility that students have to choose those courses. And then the money piece, right, is the part that follows those individuals. And so I think that's the trade-off, and I think that's the big question that I think we're all sort of grappling with here is when we look at all of the different things that are important, and we think that there are a lot of things here that are important, is that a trade-off that we're willing to make? That's the major piece I would put with the time I have.
Thank you. I appreciate that for answering that. Next, I want to turn to either Laura or to Mr. Boots. What I want to ask is, just recently we heard the numbers at the DC Policy Center's revealing of the state of DC schools, that our graduation rate was 79%, I believe I'm right, and that our career readiness was 16%, which is a difference of 63%. I want to hear what you guys have to say. What are your thoughts on that very quickly, if you can, in this minute that I have left, and what would move us forward to moving from growth to proficiency?
I'll just quickly say that I think our district is not doing a good enough job on the students, supporting the students who are the most disconnected from our education system, right? Because the kids that do get the internships are often the kids that are also doing AP, that are also doing a dual enrollment. Like, they're the kids that make us all look good on paper, and so I think it's much harder to work with the students who are barely showing up, but maybe they still are, but barely, or they're walking the halls, they're not engaging. Like, how are we helping them see that connection? And I think that really is more of a, unfortunately, like a one-on-one kind of situation for most of our children, and we just don't have that programming down yet.
Yep, Laura's right.
30 seconds.
Yep, Laura's right. Chronic absenteeism, right? They aren't showing up to school, and I think part of that is because they don't have the reasons that are of their interest to show up to school, which again is what we're getting to, the flexibility of the electives that get them to show up to school so that we also teach them math and reading and social studies and history and science. And more high-impact tutoring. We have done a lot of it. We don't have, not every student that needs it is getting it.
Okay. Thank you both.
Thank you all for taking the time to serve as public witnesses. We will now call our next round of public witnesses. You all are dismissed.
Sorry, Ms.
Thank
Butler.
you. Could the following individuals please come to the table? Melissa Mazard, Linda Carpenter Grantham, Eric Bless Carpenter Grantham. And we will start with Melissa and then go straight down.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Melissa Mazard. I am an accredited financial counselor at ZEDEC DC. I serve on the Mayor's Financial Literacy Council, and I've spent many years working with students and adults on personal finance and teaching both the knowledge and skills needed to manage money. In my work, I often meet adults at a point where they're doing their best, but are navigating financial stress, debt, and the long-term impact of financial decisions made without the proper knowledge. And there's a real emotional toll that comes with this. Anxiety, uncertainty about the future, regret, instability, and a growing sense of falling behind. You can see the impact on mental health and how over time it can grow into deeper challenges that affect not only the individual, but also their families and ripples into entire communities. What stands out to me just as much is young people. Kids I find are curious and eager to learn about money. They are already forming beliefs and habits about money and are learning through what they see, what they hear, and what they absorb from the world around them. Unfortunately, not all of those messages are designed to serve them, and without guidance, they can lead to decisions that aren't in their best interests. Many students have not yet experienced the added shame or stress that can come from their own financial decisions, and that is exactly why financial education in our schools matters. This stage of life is a window of opportunity where we can guide that learning and provide students with tools to manage their finances effectively and recover when financial challenges arise. I believe making financial education a graduation requirement is about preparation and empowerment. At its core, it helps students make informed decisions that support their goals, their values, and the lives they want to build. In a world where financial systems are complex, support systems are shifting, and information isn't always clear or reliable, it is more important than ever that young people learn how to navigate money for themselves. We can help them build strong financial habits early, know how to access resources, feel comfortable talking about money, and seek out the right support when needed. Ultimately, we can equip them with an essential life skill as they step into adulthood so they can grow into adults who live with more clarity, stability, confidence, and direction. In my conversation with adults, I often hear a common sentiment, people wishing that they had learned how to manage money earlier in life. That is exactly why making financial education a graduation requirement matters, because it gives every student a stronger foundation to thrive. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good evening. Thank you, State Board of Education, for having my son and I to be here to share about his law, Eric's ID law. My 21-year-old son, Eric, who's sitting here, is highly functioning autistic. My son, Eric, created a very special law called Eric's ID law in the state of Maryland. So in having a conversation with him to stay safe once Mr. George Floyd was killed, I realized that I have an African-American son with an invisible disability. Should he be stopped by law enforcement, this is very concerning for me. So I had a conversation with Eric to stay safe. I told him, if you're ever stopped by law enforcement, put your hands up, yell out I have autism, yell out my number, and yell out someone call my mom. Eric started to cry. He said, Mom, I could do that, but the police may hurt, harm, or shoot my friends that have autism because we're all different on the spectrum. Some of my friends have ADHD. They walk back and forth. They won't keep still. Some of them have sensory, which means they're very sensitive to sound and light. He was crying. He said, Mom, we have to do something, and we have to do something now. So Eric came to me a little later. He said, Mom, I have an idea. I would like to put something on the Maryland IDs that would let the police know that me and my friends have an invisible disability. And will you see this little butterfly here in the corner? The butterfly represents hope, peace, freedom, and change. The colors inside the wings represent the colors for all hidden disabilities. So we had a meeting with Senator Chris Van Hollen, and he appointed one of his legislative aides to help us with a proposal to meet with our Maryland State Senator Will C. Smith. We met with Senator Smith. He was excited to write this bill for Eric's ID law. The bill didn't move the first round, but we are happy to report that the governor, Governor Wes Moore, signed the bill into law in 2025. Once the bill went into law, it became obtainable October the 1st. It looks like this. It has a black butterfly now because the Maryland MVA, their ID cards come pre-colored, so you have to use a black butterfly, which we are still excited about. After being invited on The View with Ms. Whoopi Goldberg and the Sherry Shepherd Show, where we received millions of views and comments to make this a national law, that is now our mission, is to move this law forward across America. And I'm going to let Eric tell you a little bit more about that. Oh, we have to wait it out? Okay, go ahead.
Good evening, members of the DC State Board of Education. I would like to thank you all for allowing me and my mom to be here to share about my law, Eric's ID law. My name is Eric Bress Carpenter Grantham. I am 21 years old, and I am proud to say I have highly functioning autism. This journey started with a simple but important conversation with my mother. She was concerned about my safety, extremely in situations where I might not be able in the way law enforcement would expect for me. From that conversation, I was blessed with the idea to create a butterfly symbol that could be placed on state IDs to help identify individuals with invisible or hidden disabilities, like autism, mental health conditions, hearing impaired, and all hidden disability. That idea became Eric's ID law. On May 13, 2025, our Maryland State Governor, Governor Westmore, signed Eric's ID law into law in Maryland. On October 1st, it went into effect, and I was proud to be honored to be the first person in the state of Maryland to receive the butterfly symbol on my ID. As of last week, over 15,083 Maryland residents have chosen to add the butterfly symbol on their state ID or driver's license. Now we are extending this effect. Several states, including Georgia, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Delaware, and Washington, D.C., have introduced their own versions of Eric's ID law. We are now talking to other states to get their support for Eric's ID law. I want to speak about the Eric's ID Law Amendment Act of 2026 here in D.C. This bill was introduced on March 2nd and is currently under review by the D.C. Council. It is sponsored by Council members Zachary Parker and Louis George and 6 other D.C. Council members. This legislation is about improving safety, communication, and respect. It will allow residents in the District of Columbia to voluntarily add a butterfly symbol on their state ID to help first responders and law enforcement in encouraging more understanding during stressful situations like emergency or traffic stops. In closing, this bill is about making sure every person and streaming those who challenge are not always invisible. It's treated with understanding, destiny, and care. I respectfully ask for your support of Eric's ID law because it's time for change. Thank you all.
Thank you all for your testimony. We will now go to a round of questions from our state board members. Representative Mozendar.
Thank you all so much for your testimony. To Ms. Mazard, I wanted to echo what you said about the essential skills of financial literacy and how they create the foundation for just having the best practices towards adulthood especially. And to Ms. Carpenter-Grantham, I want to thank you so much for speaking out about Eric's ID law. It's incredibly important to ensure the safety of those with invisible disabilities, especially people of color in the face of law enforcement. And to Mr. Carpenter-Grantham, I want to thank you for creating this law and having this idea and putting it forth in the first place. I hope you know how instrumental it was and is in protecting and preserving the dignity and respect of everyone with a hidden disability, and I fully support this. I have no further questions at this time, so I yield back my time.
Thank you. Representative Chamberlain.
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming and talking to us. Say Ms. Mazard first, I would like to let you know that I'm a senior, I'm going to college next year, and I don't know anything about loans. So that is, just want to let you know, like, it is very real. We do not know what is going on. My main concern, I would say, about not having something as a requirement, a little bit to what Ms. Fuchs was saying, is that not completely to the fault of anyone, like our teachers, administrators, whatever. It's a big time, money, space thing, but a lot of times if things are not required, they are not gonna happen. It's just a thing that happens, you know. So yeah, I envision that changing within an actual space created to learn about these things. And I think sometimes if you don't create the space to learn about these things, it might not happen. I mean, it's difficult to get financial literacy into social studies, let's be real. So thank you. And then also to Linda and Eric, I want to say thank you so much for coming and talking to us, and that the colors on your butterfly were beautiful. And I'm very sorry that it has to be a plain butterfly, but it is still beautiful. And I want to thank you so much for ensuring the safety and comfort of people with disabilities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Dinkins.
Thank you both so much. Thank you all so much for your testimonies. Eric and Ms. Carpenter-Grantham, thank you for your contribution to contributing to the service of safety and to your contribution to inclusivity and creating these safer spaces. I mirror both what Representative Chamberlain and Representative Mazendar said. It's genuinely so important, and I'm so grateful and so appreciative of all that you guys do to creating these spaces. I do have one question, and it's for Ms. Mazard. So acknowledging that students are currently being exposed to financial experiences outside of schools, what would that look like with learning in schools and then having to apply it in the real world?
I believe in just-in-time learning, so it's more so teaching about what's relevant to them at the time, and also teaching them how to discern what information is correct and useful and what is not. So just-in-time learning would probably be like how to read your paycheck and understand the taxes that are going on, like what percentages go to what and for what. I think that would have more of an impact on like sticking with them and like how it could be used in the real world. Because a lot of financial education does, like once you learn it, it does kind of leave you over time. So I think if they can start applying that information immediately, it could start sticking better.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Representative Henderson.
Thank you all. I don't have any questions, just praise and gratitude. Thank you for your advocacy. I'm the Ward 5 representative, so I've been watching Councilmember Parker move this work forward, I believe because he's inspired by you. So thank you for that, and I'll end there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Thompson.
Okay, so I told the Carpenter Granthams that we were a friendly crowd, and that the state board was a much better place to testify than any of the places they have testified before, because I know that to be true. I know we in particularly engage and care about kids and families. And I know our students in particular have already gotten to go, but I asked them here today to testify before us, because I've already previewed this idea with you all at a working session. And I knew if you saw them today and heard them today and their push to make the invisible visible, you would also say, what can we do as a state board? And I believe the thing that we need to do at this time, especially given the federal occupation in our city and the interactions folks are having with all different types of law enforcement from all different types of places that even if they see us, they don't know us. We need in this moment to write a resolution calling for the council to pass this expeditiously. We have done emergency legislation for so many different things. I'm not so sure we can technically do emergency legislation for this, because I know there are budget constraints and all the things, but what I do know is that we need to do everything in our power in going on the record to support this and say why we should do this as a city, and encourage our colleagues who are also leaders in the city to remove any barriers to getting this done. And so I look forward at our next working session to putting forth a resolution calling for us to support this. I only want to thank you all for being here today. And I yield the rest of my time, because I know that you all made time for us today, and you all have somewhere to be after this. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Representative Williams.
Yes, it's hard to follow that. So I'll say ditto and then expand. But I do think that, thank you both for your advocacy and for championing this. It's very sensible and has a chance to make a real impact, and it's proactive, and I think can help remove a lot of potential harm that can give a lot of people, particularly with disabilities, peace and greater degrees of safety. So I do look forward to our conversation as a board as well, for seeing about what we can do, and we'll happily support it. So thank you both. And then Ms. Mazard, thank you for your advocacy as well. I think I don't particularly feel the need to be sold on the benefits of financial education. I think I'm thinking more about how to contextualize it with the things students already have on their plate and what quality implementation looks like. So I don't have any particular questions at this point, but I want to thank you for your advocacy and for your work.
Representative Best.
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but I am truly inspired. I am proud of the work that you've been doing. I've heard about it, the work that you all were doing, and just to see you here and explaining everything is just, it's a great moment. So I definitely, support you and everything that you're saying about like we need to get this done and make sure that we are advocating for this also. So just congratulations, keep pushing, and we got your back.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Representative Chang.
To that, thank you for coming to testify. No questions at this time.
Thank you. Vice President Goulet.
I want to thank you all for coming out to testify. I had a similar situation where there was a parent who reached out to me during the SRO debate and talked about their child who had a hidden disability and had left school grounds. And in that case, it turned out with a happy ending because the SRO knew the student and knew what the student was going through and knew the student's challenges. And because of that personal connection, they were able to intervene, help the student out, talk to the student. But it could have gone the other way had that person not had that personal relationship. So when I saw this bill introduced, I was very supportive of it, and will certainly be supporting Representative Thompson's resolution. I want to ask, though, for students that may not have a driver's license or learner's permit, is there a path in the bill right now where we could get the same butterfly symbol or the same identifying mark on a student ID so that like a student then could show police that and then they would be able to identify that they have this hidden disability? Is that in the bill? If not, can we add it?
I don't think it's in the bill as far as a student. However, that is one of the missions for Eric and I, is to get this butterfly on everything, Costco IDs, in grocery stores, colleges, schools, wherever you have to present an ID, library cards, because people need assistance who cannot communicate like you and I. And so if you're in a grocery store and you have a lanyard on and it has that butterfly on there, then who works there should know this person needs assistance. So we are definitely hoping and praying to get this everywhere, not just but I do know that, you can get it on just a regular state ID. Well, in the state of Maryland, you can. And it doesn't matter what age you are. They are very accommodating. I'm sorry, Eric, say that? Go ahead.
Actually do like your idea. That'd be a really good amendment to the bill in DC.
Yeah, and I'll work with Representative Thompson and the council on that. I just think that would be really, just another pathway where a student could then pull the ID out and everybody would know that symbol because it's on the driver's license. So I think it would just be a way for students who may not have access to the other form of ID to be able to identify that they have this challenge. And just in conclusion, I love the name of the bill too. So thank you all for coming out to testify tonight.
Thank you.
President Patterson.
Okay, I agree with you, Eric. First, I'm just very full, I guess is the best way that I can say it, by you guys' testimonies. I want to turn to my colleague, Representative Thompson, and thank you so much for having them to come. I know we had a little glitch in the beginning where we thought one of you weren't going to be able to testify because something happened, and I'm so glad that me and my colleague got to fix that in our admin meeting, our leadership meeting, because of the power of what you guys just spoke about. It was truly important that both of you be here, first and foremost. So thank you for being here, showing up the way that you guys have shown up for students with disabilities. It's just so important. I also want to say, Eric, your coat is fire, okay? I just want to say your jacket's fire, okay? I've been sitting here the whole time saying like this. Not only is this a good advocacy, but I'm just loving how you're presenting today and how you're showing up and advocating. Like my colleagues have said, I'm going to 100% support what Representative Thompson has suggested for us, and make sure that we support both, I believe you said Parker and George, in this bill, and so that in every meeting that I go to, we do have the privilege as leadership sometimes to talk to some of our, like the council chair and some of the other individuals, to kind of push them along. And I'm going to use every avenue that I possibly can to try to push this along. So thank you so much for your powerful testimony. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to share really quickly that this law is just, oh my God, it's impacting so many people in the world. Eric is like a little celebrity now. Everywhere we go, people know him. We get a lot of people to come up to us in the store or wherever we are. They're in tears. A lot of the parents are in tears, and they're thankful and they're grateful for this law to help protect their loved one who has an invisible disability. So we are just grateful to God that he gave Eric this idea. You know, and just so you guys know a little bit about Eric, Eric loves God and he loves politics. So he's like a preaching politician.
Okay.
But we do say thank you. Thank you so much to
Thank
everyone.
you.
And thank you so much, Ms. Thompson. Thank you so much for inviting us. We're
So-
grateful.
So I appreciate everyone that has testified. You guys are now dismissed as our final panel, I believe. That's correct. And so at this particular time, just thanking the public witnesses for your comments tonight. We sincerely appreciate everything. And based on our amended agenda earlier today, we do not have any administrative items to vote on, and we will move to new business. Members, are there any announcements or comments you would like to make before we adjourn? I see a nodding of heads no, you know, because it seems like people want to get up out of here. So with no further business before the State Board, I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It's been moved by Representative Thompson.
Second.
I've been seconded by Representative Williams. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? We have it. We are now adjourned. And I also want to say thank you, Superintendent, for staying the whole entire time and listening. I appreciate that. We are now adjourned.